It's live.
It's live?
This is start.
Start?
You guys start.
Good afternoon. It's a pleasure to be here and talk about a very relevant topic, which is education and quality education. My name is Kunal. I'm the managing director of JBCN Education, which runs a group of international schools, mostly following the IB and the IGCSE curriculum. That's my colleague, Ms. Sangeeta. She's the head of the pre-primary section of JBCN International Parel. Thank you for having us over here. And I thought I'll start off by telling you a little bit about our journey, and hopefully we can answer some questions and give you some relevant information today. So just to tell you a little bit about JBCN, we started. This was started by my mom, who's the founder and chairperson 38 years ago. She started in a small room, a little bigger than this cabin that I'm sitting in right now, with a leaking roof, with 6 or 7 children, purely because she had passion for teaching. She had a vision for what she wanted to teach and how she wanted to teach, and most importantly, she always strongly believed that she wanted to teach in a way that learners wanted to learn rather than in a way that teachers wanted to teach. And that's how she started off this journey. It grew from a small area into a group of preschools that are still, running in Bombay. The name of the preschools are called Children's Nook. Should I continue? They're called Children's Nook group of preschools, and she's been very successful in setting up these preschools. Personally, I actually studied the IB program myself, so I'm a student of the IB before being part of a management that runs IB schools. After that, I went to the US and I studied over there for 4 years, and I kind of the right methodology is the right professors, the right faculty, which kind of shaped my personality, which shaped my thought process, which helped me, build a certain vision that I had. And that's when I came back and told mom that I want to, come back after my studies and, build an organization that focuses on quality education, on international education. And I think being the only child, my mom gave me a long rope saying, if you don't, wait back and, live in the US and come back, then she'll help me set this up. And that's how JBCN was born. I had a job, on Wall Street in New York, doing investment banking. And, I gave that up to come back and start JBCN. A lot of my friends thought I was taking the wrong decision at that time. But 15 years later, I can tell you, I think it's been the best decision, and it's been a very satisfying journey. So we started off JBCN in 2003, and we focused on curriculum development, teacher pedagogy, teacher training. And what we did is, over the next 6 or 8 years, we focused on working with different schools that wanted to build an international program, where we focused on building the curriculum, building the pedagogy, teacher training, recruitment, so on and so forth. And we were involved with setting up and running 9 international schools all over the country, from Bombay to Hyderabad, to Ranchi, to Calcutta, to Ahmedabad, and so on and so forth. In 2008, 2009, we realized that, somewhere being purely on the curriculum as a consultant or a management consultant, a lot of our philosophy was getting compromised because the promoters of each individual school, as the numbers grew, as the school grew, had a different thought process. And for us, quality education, focusing on building the right skill set for learners was something that was really important. And hence we took a plunge to build our own schools. We were fortunate to get the right partners who believed in us, who could invest with us and help us build quality institutes. And that's how JBCN International was born, with our first school in Borivali in 2010, and subsequently in Parel, and then in Oshiwara. And now we have a 4th campus coming soon in the next academic year as well. I think as a core philosophy, what we believe in JBCN is that every learner has his or her own forte. And what's important for us is to unlock that potential, to unlock what each individual learner is good at. And I think that's what we focus on. The other thing we focus on is skill development. I think today's generation is a lot about skill development rather than just academic knowledge. Acquiring knowledge when we were in school was difficult, but today it's just a click away. The important part is channelizing that knowledge and being able to use it in the most appropriate form. So we focus on a very strong skill development program at JBCM, where we focus on skills that we believe are important to keep our learners ready for 2040 or 2050. We don't know what the world is going to be like, what jobs are going to be prevalent, what's going to be relevant at that stage. But we strongly believe that there are certain skills like leadership, communication, entrepreneurship, certain value systems like honesty, integrity. These are all important things that our learners have a parallel program across all our JBCN schools, which is like a value-added program where we do things like robotics. We've tied up with the Columbia Business School on entrepreneurship. We've got a UK-based company called Global Social Leaders, and we do a leadership program, and so on and so forth. We even do Lego and problem solving and design thinking, even at a pre-primary age. And maybe Sangeeta, maybe you want to throw some light on how even our 3, 4, and 5-year-olds focus on. We always say that it's important to find the problem, not the solution, because in today's generation, only if you can find the problem, then you can be relevant.
So I think the program really, especially the preschool program, we focus a lot on the process of learning. It's never about the product. It's never about what the child has learned. It's more about how the child has learned what he has learned. So it's always about, like Kunal said, getting children to ask the right questions. It's not always about just providing the answers, but getting them to think about the problems, getting them to work collaboratively to find solutions to these problems. And this is a skill that we start with as early as 3 years old, when we start them with value adds. We have Lego, we have robotics happening for our 4 and 5-year-olds. These are things where the children actually come together and work out solutions to problems that are there. And the process is so important because we don't know what these learners are going to be facing in the future, or what kind of job readiness is going to be expected of them. Learning to think about their thinking is something that we focus very much on right from the preschool years. So
Absolutely.
I think that's exploration and inquiry would be the key ingredients of the teaching program at JBCM.
And I think, Sangeeta, what's important is we focus on skill development from a very young age.
Absolutely.
So when you take your learners through a certain process and skill development, I think the outcome is a byproduct.
Yes.
We are not focusing on getting a 90% or getting a 95% or an A star or whatever the coding system may be for grades. I think the focus is on the skill development and the process.
Yes, the process of learning.
Yeah, I think people always ask me, but at the end of the day, they have to give an exam. And it's the most important thing that we give an exam and they have to have.
90%.
And I think my take on this, and this is what I tell parents, is that even giving an exam is skill development. Everything we're doing should focus on a certain skill. So for me, an exam is just about a learner being able to reproduce what he has learned in a concise, precise manner in a given period of time.
Absolutely.
So today, that's a skill that he has to learn. So today, because we gave exams and we learned that skill, you asked me to do this interview, and if a question pops up from one of the viewers, I can't say that, hey, give me 10 minutes, I'm going to think about it and come back. I'm going to come up with an answer which is relevant, important, and precise within a given stipulated time. And that's what exams and assessments are all about. So I think as long as we focus on skill development, because that's the only thing that's going to be relevant 10, 15, 20 years.
Kunal, since you said this, it's also a lot about actually understanding and comprehending the matter, the content. It's
Absolutely.
not just about, because like you said, if we were to rote learn, anything that is a little off track would throw you. You wouldn't know how to then come up with a relevant, meaningful answer. So it's very important that manner. I think that would be the focus again of
absolutely.
education.
And we get this question a lot of why an international school versus a national curriculum or a national board, and I think you answered that perfectly. International curriculum is all about analyzing what you learn, reproducing what you learn, understanding, learning through understanding. So what we focus in the classroom is on teaching learning strategies.
Correct.
Rather than content. It's all about concept development.
Yes.
I think, to give a simple example, if I had to go and someone had to fly a plane for me, I'd rather go with a pilot who's flown a plane multiple times practically and understands the nuances rather than a pilot who's read 100 books on flying but has never flown a plane.
Absolutely.
Right? So I think it's all about understanding and being able to apply what you understand in the right.
Yes. And a lot of it does come through experiential learning, right?
Absolutely.
So it's about actually getting down there and very hands-on kind of learning where you are applying the concepts that you have learned, seeing the theory in its practical form, understanding the multiple usages of that theory, and therefore being able to use it no matter what the circumstance may be.
Absolutely.
So,
and to build on this experiential learning, we've built these zones. I think we're the first school in the country to build learning zones, which are open spaces, fungible, multiple, interdisciplinary learning that happens for the pre-primary section, and that's been really successful.
Been very successful because it just opens. While we talk about inquiry-based learning and exploration, it's very important to have an environment that is conducive to exploration and inquiry, because we always do believe that today the environment is the third teacher. So when we talk about exploration and learning, the third floor that we have just launched at JBCN, the pre-primary at JBCN, is exactly that. It just allows children the opportunity, the freedom, and it provides the environment which is so conducive to exploratory learning, practical application.
Absolutely.
Because we have zones for multiple skills and development. Like we have the expressive zone where children do art, or they do theater, or they do drama or poetry recitation. We have cooking happening, which is the most multisensory approach to learning. There's nothing.
And math is taught through measurement and cooking.
Yes, language, math, emotion, feeling. I think cooking is the best multisensory learning experience that a learner can have.
Absolutely.
So we have an entire kitchen. I mean, a real life kitchen where children can, because when it comes to mothers, they are a little cautious about letting children kind of, fool around in the kitchen. But here we allow them to explore with different materials. We allow them to come up with their own answers.
Absolutely.
So I think the zones work wonderfully when it comes to allowing children the freedom to explore and inquire.
And I think one more aspect through these zones is, while teaching and learning strategies are important, concept-based learning is important. I think also what this enables is a very important aspect of learning, which is, which when you talk about lifelong learning is self-directed learning.
Absolutely.
I think when you have self-directed learning, it's actually learning that stays with you for life.
For life, yes.
Self-directed learning can be by picking up a book and reading. It could be by making mistakes like I did and learning from your mistakes.
Yes.
But I think the whole point of exploration and hands-on learning is to kind of promote self-directed learning so that our learners can...
They carry it with for life.
Yeah, I think learning has to be for life. Right?
Yes.
And I think that's something we focus on as well. But yeah, it's just to come back to the larger picture, it's been a very satisfying journey. We have over 4,000 learners and 500 faculty that work with us at JBC, and we have some really, really competent senior people who work together. There's a lot of brainstorming that goes on. There's a lot of collaboration that goes on. And I think, many minds put together, like all of us in our collaboration meetings, whenever we're discussing strategies, I think
multiple ideas being bounced off each other.
And I think the best part is that everyone's philosophy is aligned, that whenever we come up with a decision or whenever we think of something, we're only thinking about what is the most important use of time for a learner in JBCN. And every decision we come up with is focused on how will the learner benefit. So yeah, it's been a great journey. And
So I have a few questions for you.
please.
So, which is the what kind of school should a parent select?
So I think when a parent is selecting a school, and Sangeeta, please jump in because you're part of the admissions process as well. I think the most important thing is, when you choose a school, it's a marriage between the parents and the school. Okay, you're going to be committing a school more or less for 13 to 15 years. I mean, in today's time, most marriages don't last that long. But I think the philosophies of what you want as a parent and the philosophy of what the school is providing has to match. So we were saying at JDCN, for us, it's really important that skill development is important, academic rigor, all-round development. We have a huge sports program. We have a very strong music program. We keep telling parents in senior grades that it's not only our responsibility to get you into university, but it's also our responsibility to teach you how to survive and thrive in university. For that, you need skills. There are certain schools that are only focused on academic rigor. There are certain schools that are only focused on open-ended learning, where they just believe that school has its own USP, has its own philosophy. I think as a parent, you need to, example, as a school, match your philosophy. Because then what happens, only when the parent and the school are in partnership and work well together does the learner benefit.
So, what is the right age group? So, there are a lot of people who say that right age group for preschooling is 16 months, 18 months. Some say 3 years. So, let's hear from the experts. What do you guys say? What is the right age?
More than the right age, I think it's the right school that would make the difference, really. We need to understand that today, as opposed to maybe 10 or 15 years back, we are looking at double income families where parents, mother, father, both are out busy. So it's important to have an environment that, and we've broken away from the very traditional joint family system. So we need to, it's children today, younger parents are looking at schools as an option to have a safe place for children to go, a stimulating environment where their needs are taken care of. So I think it's more than the age, because that's something the parent will probably decide at what age they want to, kind of enroll the child in. The kind of school that they choose and the kind of atmosphere that they want for their little one is what should be the deciding factor.
Absolutely. And if I could just no right age, I think learning should happen throughout life.
Yes.
Okay, there are people who have gone back at the age of 60 and said, I never completed my degree and I want to go back to university or I want to get a doctorate. So firstly, I think learning has to be a process that happens on an ongoing basis. The other thing I'd like to add over here is, I think in terms of age group, if you wanted a specific answer, I think every age group has a different outcome for schooling. So for example, we have a mother-toddler program that even starts at 9 months in children's work, okay? But the outcome of that 9 months to 1.5-year-olds when they go to school is not to, become Einstein or not to learn all the colors and all the shapes and all the numbers, etc. I think the outcome is that because most people are now in a nuclear family, kids don't interact with other kids. So the outcome of the mother-toddler program is social interaction, behavioral patterns.
Yes.
And along with that, yes, they may recognize 5 colors and they will learn numbers and they'll start getting a basic sense for music. They'll start getting a basic sense for flexibility. So we have a gym program.
Yeah, so a lot of
fine motor, gross motor skills. So I think every age group, the outcome for which you are sending them to school is different.
True.
So that's the way I would answer that question.
So adding on to the same question. So nowadays you see a lot of kids either moving from India to some other country, or a lot of kids coming from some other country to India. Does the education level match? The education mean, if kids go from here abroad, or if they come from there to India,
so
do they match?
During the school years? Or
During the schooling years.
school years?
During the schooling years.
So if you are following the same board, so if, for example, you're moving from one IB school to the other, largely, the program would match. However, I must say that IB and a lot of these programs give you a framework. They don't give you the actual curriculum.
Correct.
So they tell you how to teach, not what to teach. The what to teach comes from each school. So JBCN has its own curriculum of what to teach. Every other school in Bombay will also have its own curriculum on what to teach, and that's where every school is different. But by and large, schools that follow international programs would have a similar kind of age group. Although I would say that the overall academic rigor followed
It's the same.
in India would be a little higher
Okay.
than a lot of the schools abroad. So, for example, we get a lot of expat students or a lot of Indian students who lived abroad and now are moving back. And we do find that they would need some kind of bridging program in things like mathematics, writing, and certain other skills to kind of keep up with the Indian program per se.
So
But the vice versa is not a problem. When Indian kids go
it's easy for
abroad,
them.
it's a lot easier. We've seen that they settle and they usually kind of outperform the average of the class.
So I've got a question here. So it's the user said, what if we don't put our kids to international schools? Is it okay?
So I think it is absolutely okay, as long as you put your learner or your kid in a progressive school.
Okay.
I think the important part about education is that it has to be progressive, it has to be relevant, whatever a school is teaching. So again, I can say I can take the same methodology that I follow in JBCN, okay, the how of it, and teach a SSC program, a CBSE program, because that is only content. So I think, okay, we follow an international program because we believe in it, our philosophies align. I think it's a wonderful program. I think the assessment patterns are different in an international program. They assess on what Sangeeta was saying earlier, they assess on what you have understood from the content and the entire curriculum rather than what the curriculum is and what the content is. But if you don't put your kid in an international program, that's okay, as long as you put up your kid in a school that is progressive, that is teaching relevant information. So if they are still teaching textbooks that were done 20 years ago, there are certain schools that introduce computer science still in grade 9. Now my 6-year-old son, when he was 3 years old, knew how to handle an iPad better than I did. So if you are not going to introduce him to technology and computers till he is 13 years old, he's going to figure it out anyways. So then that becomes irrelevant. Then that becomes redundant. So I think as long as you put your son or daughter in a school that is progressive, that is forward-thinking, that is always willing to change, upgrade themselves from resources to curriculum to teacher training, I think it doesn't matter whether it's an international or national.
Okay, so adding to the question that I asked earlier, that which is the best school for my child? The users ask, how do I measure my kids' learning capability?
How do I measure my child's learning capability?
So there are different ways of doing it. I think at a younger age, rather than measuring capability, I think it's more about exploring capability. I think what's important is I know it does tend to happen that, oh, I'm a doctor, my son will become a doctor, I'm an engineer, my son, or I run a business and he should get back into my business. I think what's important is at a young age, it's important that they explore their capability. Once they are old enough, then they can unlock their full potential. Once they've identified, is he good at cooking? Is he good at sports? Is he good at math? Is he good at science? Is he a languages guy? Is he a linguist? Once you've understood that, then you can look at kind of how to maximize that. And there are multiple ways of doing that. They have international benchmarks, so you can always look at these forms of assessment and benchmark yourself internationally. That's one way of doing it. The other way of doing it is, if it's sports, it's as simple as getting into a team and going from a school level to a state level to a national level. So there are different ways. Then you know whether you're progressing or not. But I think the most important thing for parents is first to explore that ability rather than maximize that.
And to bring it to a level that we work with, or I work with, the pre-primary, a lot of parents make the mistake of comparing children, which I think is absolutely the wrong way to measure any capability, because there's a beautiful line in our school song which I really feel very strongly about. It says to be the best that you can be, which is what we focus on really in the early years especially. So the comparison and the benchmarking should be against your own previous performances, never with with other learners or other children.
Absolutely.
Okay. So I've got a question, which is
how to select a good school.
I think that's
I think we kind of answered that.
That.
What should be the minimum income of a parent to put a kid in an international school? So again, I'm going to answer this differently. I don't think I'm the right person to determine income levels for an international school. The way I'm going to answer this is, what is the mindset of a parent of what percentage of his income does he want to spend on quality education and prioritizing. So we have parents, and I'm giving you live examples, excuse me, in JBCM, where they come saying that, hey, we are a dual income family, we have a limited budget, but we rather take 2 holidays less because we want our child to get the best education, and we believe that JBCM gives the right education and gives our philosophy matches with JBCM. And we'll have parents who will come to us who can afford every luxury in life, and will still come and question saying, hey, why are you charging such a high fee for a 3-year-old? So I don't think it's based on the income you earn, but I think it is based on your priorities and what percentage of that are you willing to sacrifice and expend for your child's education, to give him the right education, to give him relevant education, and to give him quality education.
It is an investment for life. So.
Correct.
The next question I see is, what happens if I put my kid from a government school to a private school? What if we want to repeat my child's first grade since his basic math is weak? So moving from a government school to a private school is not a problem at all. I think children and learners, as we call them, are like a sponge. They can absorb as much as you give them. Every child has a different pace of learning. So someone's kid may adjust in 2 days, someone's kid may adjust in 2 months, but eventually they will adjust. Again, I can speak about JBCN, that we have a very strong, robust process to ensure that new children coming into the system, they have a buddy, they have a teacher mentor, and there are various processes to ensure that the transition into our school is smooth. In terms of repeating grade 1, I think this decision should be left to the school rather than the parent. We as a school would want to, assess your child and assess the levels he is at before deciding whether he should repeat grade 1 or not. Because sometimes what happens is, if he ends up repeating a grade and his basic knowledge is already at par or above par, it may lead to him being bored in classrooms. It may lead to him not being able to progress, which will lead to disruption within a classroom. And there are many, many repercussions of it. So my simple suggestion here would be that I think we as an expert should be assessing your child and deciding whether he or she should stay back in grade 1 or move forward to the next grade. What documents are needed for the admission process? There are a whole bunch of documents that are required, but they're all basic, like school leaving certificates, your birth certificate, photographs, etc. But what I would suggest is, rather than me trying to list out the documents, and I'll probably miss a few, if you just go to our website and go to the admission tab, there's an inquiry form. If you fill in that inquiry form, we will get one of our counselors to get in touch with you and take you through the entire admission process. It's quite a simple, smooth process. So I don't think you should have any issues there. You can ask many, many other questions related to the admission process once you're in touch with the counselor.
To add to the same question, there was another question that had come in. So what is the education level of this? that you look for when you all are planning, when they come for admissions?
Again, I think more than the education level, I think we look at the philosophy of the parents.
Okay.
What they believe in for their children. Are they open-minded? Are they comfortable with their child exploring and fulfilling his or her potential, whether it's being a chef, a sportsman, or strong in academics? So I think those are the things. The other things we look at in terms of parents is how well can they support their child in working with the school to ensure that we can give the best, to their learner. I think that's the most important thing. They got to believe in us. They got to trust us. We got to work as partners. Like I said earlier, it's a marriage between the parents and the school. So I don't think we're looking at a certain qualification level per se, right?
It's a mindset that we're really looking at.
How do I get my child involved in school?
Okay.
Uh,
If the child is not involved in school, I think that is a concern. We need to be thinking about the school because, a school should ideally be able to get every learner involved in whatever it is that they are doing. So children are natural learners. They love learning. They take to it very naturally. They enjoy the process of learning. It all depends on how it is put forth to the child, how we are able to engage as a school or as a curriculum, how are we able to engage children in whatever it is that interests them, and then building from there. So I think that's what it basically
and I
amounts to.
think there would be a few aspects that are important. If your child is not involved in the school, I think you need to look at the first and foremost is the environment.
Yes.
Is it a happy, safe, in terms of safety and security, health and hygiene, is it a happy, safe environment? The second is the faculty. Your child will always get involved in the school once they build a connect with the faculty.
Absolutely.
Whether it's the homeroom teacher, whether it's the PE sir, whether it's the teacher librarian, that connect needs to build. So how good is the faculty at doing that? And the third, which is also equally important, is the friends and the people around him. The moment the peer group. The moment he gets comfortable, starts making friends, once these things come in place, automatically you will see that your child is getting more and more involved, is enjoying school. We have children who come to JBC and their parents saying, hey, can you not give such a long summer break because they want to come back to school? And obviously we have teachers saying, hey, we need our summer break. So that's a constant debate. But I think that's the environment that needs to be created, and that's the right environment in which your child needs to be to ensure that he gets involved and enjoys school. Except for studying, what other activities should my kid get involved in? Again, I think it would be wrong for us to get specific on activities, but I think it's important that he's involved in some kind of sports. He's involved in some kind of activities that are creative in nature. He should be involved in different activities, which some are individual activities, some which involve collaboration. So the reason I'm saying this is it ensures that one is that your child can explore and kind of understand where his potential lies, where his interest lies, what he enjoys, what he's good at. And also, every activity will have a different form of skill development. So if you're working in a group, if you're working individually, so sport teaches you the concept of winning and losing. So failure, I think the concept of failure is something that you need to learn. So I think you need to kind of explore and do different forms of activities.
Absolutely.
Before you can pinpoint and say you should do A, B, C kind of activity.
Allowing children choices also, allowing them to choose what they want, and to be realistic enough to know that there are a lot of activities that children are going to drop on the way. They're not going to carry forward with everything they start with, because that's the age that they are at. They're trying to find themselves. So there would be some activities which they may take to naturally, and those are the ones that they would probably continue with. There would be some which they may have chosen but may decide to drop out of after a couple. So which is the way it is. So
and we should allow them
that flexibility.
So just to add on to this question, what are the activities that you conduct at your facility at JBC?
So we have a very strong program which is called the development of the mind, body, soul. Like I spoke earlier, it's all about skill development. So we have a program which is a value-added program which focuses on enrichment and skill development, and then we have a co-curricular program which is the mind, body, soul. So mind being creative, body being physical, and soul being about giving back. We've also built an infrastructure which supports this. So from the third floor, we've built these learning zones that we spoke about, which are open learning zones, which are very, which builds a very conducive environment to have these activities, to having indoor swimming pools, to having an auditorium. These are all facilities we've built, astroturfs for sports. These are facilities we built to enhance our program. So right from music to drama to sports to robotics to leadership programs to entrepreneurship programs to Lego to singing to choir to there's a whole bunch of activities that are offered at different age groups. We do photography. We do I can't even remember all of them.
So what age group does all this start from?
Correct. Right from the preschool programs, like
over here.
Yeah. So what happens is from nursery to grade 5, all these activities are part of the curriculum. During school hours, parents don't pay extra. Again, the thought and concept is let them explore. Let them play multiple sports, let them do music, let them do speech and drama, let them do robotics, let them do languages. We have a reading program, so on and so forth. From grade 6 onwards, we have options. So from grade 6 onwards, they have to choose one of the activities from different fields, and that's how they kind of do it.
So based on the same thing that we are asking, the next question has come on.
What activities should I have for my 4-year-old daughter after school? I have put her in dramatics. So again, I feel that it's important that your daughter goes through a different array and different forms of activities, whether it's being sports and being outdoors. I think drama is always good because it's great for speech, it's great for language, it's great for confidence building. Music and instruments are important.
I think it's about, like you rightly said, giving them the exposure and then figuring out what it is that they would like to do. So you've already chosen dramatics for your child. So I guess doing something which is a little different, like maybe a sport, something which will give her a different skill set or an exposure to a different skill set would probably be.
Absolutely. And a lot of in today's time also, a lot of people are exploring things like Lego, robotics, of technology as a program. I think that's something that's important as well, because I think today's generation is wired in a different way. They're wired in a way to kind of be involved in technology or pick up technology or understand technology at an early age. So I think that's something that can be enhanced as well. Okay. Sir, 25 months का बेबी को स्कूल भेजने सही रहेगा, वो बोलता नहीं है.
25 months is 2 years plus.
2 years plus.
Which is a playgroup.
But he said his son doesn't speak yet.
Which is okay, I think. At 2 years, and if it's a boy, normally they are a little later, so it's perfectly okay as long as he's speaking a few words. थोड़ा भी अगर कुछ बोलता है और वो clearly बोल पा रहा है, तो फिर वो concern की बात नहीं है. और आप स्कूल भेजेंगे तो देखेंगे कि very quickly he will pick up language, because पहले तो receptive vocabulary होता है, उसके बाद expressive होता है, तो जितना वो सुनेगा उतना जल्दी वो बोलेगा. So
and also क्या होता है, if one skill is slightly delayed, you will realize that some of his other skills are enhanced.
Correct.
And by sending him to school, what you will do is enhance those skills and understand what those skills are. So I think it's important. How can children be taught concepts in interesting ways which they learn and understand rather than having bookish knowledge? So I think that's the whole point of the curriculum or the program we follow at JBCN or an international program like the IB. I think you teach the way the child wants to learn. So whether it is doing it through an activity, whether it is introducing the concept, doing a flipped classroom concept. So tell the learner to do some research, come back. So they've already built interest into the topic. whether it's using aids like technology, the right resources, so they kind of get into it, so they understand, they're involved in the process. There are multiple strategies that can be used, and Ms. Sangeeta can throw some light.
I think the question that you've asked is the question that every teacher at JPCM is constantly asking themselves. How can I make this more interesting and more relevant for the learner? And how can I get the learner more involved in his own learning? I think that's really the key word. Like I said, it's not about just giving them information. It's about helping them to ask the right questions and explore. So there are multiple ways in which we do this, even with our very, very young learners, right from doing research or a survey, coming up with data, analyzing that data, and then formulating a plan of action based on it. Maybe I could give an example
Please,
here.
please,
Yeah?
do give an
So we
example.
have a Didi Dada Day, which is coming up, which is where we celebrate or we kind of thank our the supporting staff in the school. So while we were brainstorming, we kind of came up with this idea that why not have the learners, the senior KG learners themselves, do a survey on what kind of food Didi Dadas like to eat, what is their favorite. So they've actually done a survey class-wise. They came up and then they created their own menu on what they would like to what they would like to have on Didi Dada Day. And we've involved our parents, so they would be bringing that food from home. The learners are making their own cards. So it's basically a very simple concept, but you see how much of involvement there is from the side of the learner. So he's involved in it would have been so easy just to give them a menu and say, just bring this from home. But the fact that they were involved in understanding things and creating their own menu, that itself is taking that learning to a whole new different level.
Absolutely.
So,
And the example we gave earlier about cooking. So imagine a learner in grocery, and then you're giving them these measure glasses, and then they're measuring the quantity of water or milk or sugar, and they're
Yes.
learning concepts in math about measurements or how many milliliters is a liter. So rather than teaching them, they are learning it through an activity. So what happens is they're doing something, they're doing an activity, or they're doing an experiment, or they're doing something hands-on. And this is what is self-directed learning. They themselves are learning it. They're not only learning measurement, they're learning quantities, they're learning percentages of how much water, how much milk, how much choco goes into making, I'm just saying, a fudge, for example. So when the fudge doesn't taste good, this is self-directed learning. They want to redo it and kind of work the proportions. So while doing these different processes, they are learning multiple concepts in maths. It's almost going to statistics in that sense, and learning. And believe me, these kids then will do pie charts,
yes.
and they'll come up with percentages and what works, what doesn't work, and that's what learning is all about. Children show tendency towards a particular interest on a subject. I want to understand at what age they start showing this interest and how we can mold it. So this does tend to happen. I think what is important is we must understand the reason for them showing interest in a subject. If is it purely because of the teacher that is there? Sometimes they build such a good connect with the teacher that they're showing interest because of the teacher. Are they showing interest because this is something that the entire class is kind of moving towards and they want to kind of move one step ahead? Or is it genuinely interest where over and above class time he or she's coming back and asking questions and wanting to go on Google and research more and more about the subject? So I think once you get the underlying reason as to why he or she is showing interest in a subject, I think then you can develop that at an appropriate age. Personally, I feel there's no age barrier to develop interest, whether it's a subject, whether it's a sport, whether it's an activity. So as and when you identify that interest, I think you must develop it, you must take it further, but you must develop the interest without putting expectations on the child. So I think it's really important that if he's good at math, the expectation should not be that he should be entering, Bonvita quizzes or math quizzes. or if he's good in a sport, the expectation should not be that he has to play for the school team or the national team or the state team. I think the interest should be cultivated purely out of passion, purely out of skill development, purely out of gaining knowledge. And I think if the intent is right from a parent, sky is the limit in terms of where he can go with that subject. Should we do a last question?
Yes.
Hi, sir. My son is 18 months old. He understands but unable to speak yet, but very active in his activities, playing, learning, and many things. Is it a good time to introduce him to playgroup, or should I let him complete 2 years? I'm a bit confused. So I think this is very similar to what the question was earlier. I think age group wise, even if he still not speaking, I think it's important he goes to school, because school is not is about developing multiple skills. Social skills is one of them. Behavioral skills. I think it's important that he gets into schooling. He will, like I said, if one of his senses is a bit slow, other senses will take over, and you can enhance that. So I think learning at any age is important, and he must go to school, and he should be able to.
And like I said, it's the choice of the school that would really matter, because it is a very young child. So look for an environment that will help him to explore, and with very few expectations. So if you can find that kind of an environment, any age is a good age for him to start schooling.
Just one last question.
Sure.
So if anyone else who's watching this program or watches this afterwards, and you are not able to answer this question, if they still want to ask, is there some way where they can get in touch with you?
Yeah, so I think there's a link provided over here about JBCN. So if they just click on the link, it'll direct them to the website through the admissions page, and they can fill in an inquiry form, and they'll be put in touch with a counselor. And the counselor will then get in touch with them and kind of answer and direct them and make sure that all their questions are answered.
Thank you so much.
All right, thank you again, and I hope this was useful and relevant, and it was a pleasure for both of us to be on this show and chat and share information about, again, what I said is a very important and relevant topic, which is international education or relevant education. So thank you for having us.
Thank you, and happy parenting.